testify before you this morning. I'm David Daleiden, and I'm the head of the Center for Medical Progress, which is a citizen journalism organization that monitors and reports on bioethical issues that impact human dignity. We're especially concerned about the exploitation of the vulnerable in government-sponsored experiments on human fetuses and human infants and their parents who are vulnerable to abortion. Under my leadership, CMP conducted a multi-year undercover video investigation of the illegal trafficking of aborted fetuses and sale of their body parts, and we began releasing the results of that in 2015. Our reporting shut down 2 companies that admitted illegally selling body parts from abortions at Planned Parenthood in Southern California, and the local district attorney thanked us for prompting that successful case. It's been 10 years now since the horrific crimes of Dr. Kermit Gosnell were revealed in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where Dr. Gosnell was delivering late-term fetuses alive and killing them by snipping their necks with surgical scissors. Dr. Gosnell sometimes kept the baby's feet as souvenirs. The horrors of the Kermit Gosnell case were able to take place and continue for so long because they were enabled by Commonwealth officials who preferred secrecy to public accountability in Pennsylvania's abortion industry. Sadly, as we've heard through some of the testimony already this morning, it's a matter of public record that there are horrific abuses of aborted infants taking place on the other side of Pennsylvania through the extensive fetal experimentation programs at the taxpayer-funded University of Pittsburgh. There were a lot of obfuscations and misrepresentations from the Pitt testimony earlier today, which I think is something you would expect when they send the new guy who's only been there for 5 months to talk about research that he's not actually involved in. So I'm going to try to address some of those and correct the record a little bit. And so in a recent study, as we've heard, Pitt scientists describe scalping 5-month-old aborted babies and grafting their scalps onto the backs of lab rats to keep them growing. Yes, lab rats. If you actually look at the published paper on the Nature Scientific Reports website, they used both rats and mice in the study. In the study, you can see the pictures of little baby scalps growing tiny baby hairs on the backs of lab rats and lab mice. Each one of those scalps growing baby hair on a rat represents a little Pennsylvania baby who would have grown those little hairs on their head if they had not been killed by abortion for experiments with rodents. Starting in 2016, Pitt received a $1.4 million grant from the NIH to become the distribution hub for aborted fetal kidneys and bladders and other organs in the NIH's Genitourinary Development Mapping Atlas program. Pitt's grant application for this grant from the NIH states that the university has a unique access to a large number of high-quality aborted fetuses and can, quote, ramp up delivery of aborted fetal body parts across the country. And 2 years ago, I published an op-ed exposing the live fetal liver harvesting of Pitt's Dr. Jörg Gerlach, a stem cell scientist in Pitt's McGowan Regenerative Medicine Institute. Dr. Gerlach's protocol calls for aborting 5-month-old fetuses alive via labor induction in order to deliver the baby whole, then wash the baby, place the baby on a surgical tray, and cut the baby open to harvest his or her liver as fresh and clean as possible. This is not just for liver cultures, this is for liver transplants. Dr. Gerlach's team boasts in their published work that this way they can harvest an unprecedentedly massive number of stem cells from the fetal liver for use in experimental transplants into adults. Dr. Gerlach's protocol describes this liver harvesting as a, quote, in vivo procedure, meaning in the living body, and requires the harvesting to take place immediately after the baby's umbilical cord has been cut. Pitt has tried to say that this is over, that it was only going on in Italy, not in the United States. There's serious reasons to doubt the veracity of those statements from the University of Pittsburgh and reasons to be very concerned that it's still going on in the United States. Dr. Gerlach and his team published a study as recently as 2019 where they described obtaining whole livers in Pittsburgh from Pittsburgh abortion providers, and they described obtaining that same unprecedentedly large number of stem cells about 2 billion liver cells per individual fetal liver. They described getting the same amount that they were saying in years prior. They were solely able to get because of this special live induction labor harvesting procedure that they were publishing on. Experimenting on a living fetus or failing to provide medical care to a born alive infant, regardless of prematurity, is a third-degree felony in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Sadly, live fetal experimentation has been reported and documented at Pitt for decades previously, and this legislative body has even heard testimony previously about live fetal experimentation at the University of Pittsburgh. During my undercover work several years ago, I met a group of abortion providers from Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania who were also faculty members at the University of Pittsburgh. The Planned Parenthood abortion providers told me on undercover video that they supply the university's tissue bank from the abortions that they perform. Yet, astoundingly, the University of Pittsburgh has issued statements to the media and statements to this legislative body, including renewing it earlier this morning, that, quote, there is no procurement relationship for tissue with Planned Parenthood. It seems clear to me why the university is lying to you. Since 2005, Pitt has been a major site for Planned Parenthood's abortion training programs. Some of the worst violators in Planned Parenthood's abortion and fetal research practices were trained at Pitt. To give you just one example, if you recall the Southern California company that I mentioned, Da Vinci Biosciences, that was shut down because of my investigative reporting, the Planned Parenthood medical director who was supplying Da Vinci, Dr. Jennifer Russo, did her abortion training program at the University of Pittsburgh. Pitt is not just exporting aborted baby body parts across the country, but they are also exporting the worst practices of the abortion industry to other states. Today, Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania's medical director still runs the abortion training program at Pitt, and Planned Parenthood Western Pennsylvania itself is a contracted care site for the University of Pittsburgh, and thus receives access to the university system's provider infrastructure, patient population, and medical students and residents. And in fact, the current medical director of Planned Parenthood Western Pennsylvania, who runs the abortion training program at Pitt, also sits on the institutional review board at Pitt that is in charge of approving fetal experimentation projects at the university, as ethical or not. So it all looks suspiciously like an illegal quid pro quo for aborted fetal organs and tissues. Pennsylvania's law against selling fetal tissue or organs is actually even more strictly framed than the federal law and prohibits any consideration whatsoever in exchange for fetal tissue. In conclusion, I think it's crucial for public officials in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, including the people's representatives in this legislative body, to exercise all of the oversight authority that is available to you to ensure that the crimes of Kermit Gosnell are not being perpetuated in Pennsylvania by an unaccountable taxpayer-funded abortion industry. Thank you for listening. I'm open to taking your questions now for the remaining time that we have.
Thank you, David, for being here. Thank you for bringing up Gosnell, which is the case that I brought up when I decided to have these hearings. It certainly is a black mark on the state of Pennsylvania. Any citizen can download the Gosnell grand jury report